Hi there, Regina Sanchez, your spiritual life and health coach, believing in you. Welcome to another version of giving you a fresh start in your health and well being. I am so excited to be here, and I'm so glad that you are here joining me for our next topic of helping you build a strong, robust immune system. Grab yourself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, glass of water. I have my water here with some fresh strawberries in it. My filtered water with some fresh strawberries. It's really actually quite yummy. So pause the video if you want and go grab yourself a beverage, cup of tea, cup of coffee, or some water, and join me. So today I want to talk to you about a topic that might be hard for some people, because it's something we love very, very, very much. And that's sugar or the sweeteners in our food. It's a broader topic, not just the sugar per se, but it's more about the sweeteners that are inside our food and how they can affect our immune system. So, just a little disclaimer here I just want to say is I'm not a doctor, but my information is based on scientific studies, and groups of doctors that I follow and I sit under and get taught by them in the health and wellness industry. I live in a different world than a lot of people. I live in a world of following doctors and practitioners that want to help us heal our bodies naturally, and live a more healthful lifestyle. So let's get on with the topic of the sweeteners in our food. One of the things that we eat is sugar, that can be the most damaging to our body in so many ways. Sugar has zero nutritional value, and it's empty of any kind of vitamins or minerals. It's just a great sweetener, right? It just makes things taste so much sweeter. And that's why we like it. But sugar has been proven to affect us physically as well as mentally, right? And there was some studies done. There's a number of studies that are done on what sugar does to us. But I found this totally fascinating, which was the annual sugar consumption per person, right? Let me pull up these numbers here. Okay, so in the 18th century, per person, we ate less than 5 pounds of sugar. So that's a 5 pound bag of sugar. And for a given year, we ate less than that 5 pound bag over the course of 365 days. All right. But let's now move into the 19th century. And now we individually eat less than 20 pounds of sugar. So that's 4 of those 5 pound bags of sugar. And then as we move into the 20th century, approximately per year, we consume about 90 pounds of sugar. Now, sadly, as we move into the 21st century, studies show that half of the US population consume approximately 180 pounds of sugar. What does that mean? That is 60 of those 5 pound bags, right? Did I do that right? Five, no, five, no, excuse me, it's 30, 40 pounds, excuse me. My math is that's not one of my strengths. We're looking at maybe 35 pounds or 35 bags of those 5 pounds of sugar, right? But regardless, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever is a lot, a lot of bags of sugar, right? According to the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, the average adult receives roughly 13% of their daily calories from sugar. And that is not good for us, right? Children and adolescents are getting as much as 16% of their daily caloric intake from nothing but sugar. right? Kids tend to eat more sugar than we do as adults. I know as a kid, I did not grow up in a environment where healthy nutrition was taken into consideration. I mean, I'm sure my parents, bless their hearts, did the best that they could, and not really understanding the effects of sugar. But we were a family that did consume a lot of sugar, to the point I'll tell you that I was addicted to it as a young adolescent. I mean, I would on a Saturday morning, we were little, we were kids, we woke up, we would turn the cartoons on. And my mom and dad were sleeping in because it was the weekend, so we were watching TV. And breakfast consisted of open a box of Captain Crunch. And so then after I had my bowl of sugar, it wasn't enough. I wanted more. And so I thought, well, I better not eat any more Captain Crunch. Let me go to Rice Krispies. So I'd go get a bowl of Rice Krispies, mind you, no milk. It was just the dry cereal. And I would pour cane sugar on it so that there would be like a little puddle of sugar at the bottom of my Rice Krispies. And then some days it was even to the point where I had to go and I'd scoop a couple scoops in the bowl and sit and eat sugar. Oh, I think about it. I think about my emotional well-being at that point. Ugh, I just could just imagine, why I felt so horrible so much of my life, right? I mean, I know a lot of it had to do with some of the abuses that I was going through, but I'm telling you, I bet my sugar intake exasperated a lot of my emotional instabilities. So we ingest different types of sugars. We ingest cane sugar, raw sugar, brown sugar, highly processed sugar, which is, that bag of Domino sugar that's been totally bleached out, or, high fructose corn syrup, right? And even though, we could get sugar from fruit, natural sugars from fruit, ingesting too much of that, could affect our blood sugar levels. The one positive thing about, eating the fruit and getting sugar from fruit is that you've got the fiber from the fruit. So that fiber helps to balance the sugar. It helps your body not spike so quickly, the sugar intake. It helps your body, evenly flow in your I don't know how to explain it. The spike isn't immediate. Like if you took that fruit and you juiced it, right, your insulin would spike fairly quickly because there wasn't the fiber to help it manage in a much slower process, if that makes sense. Okay, so it's better to have your fruit in a smoothie than juicing it. If you want to juice, it's really important to juice vegetables. You want to add an apple to something, fine, but to just every day juice fruit, you're getting a high intake of sugar. So sugar can act in different ways to us. It can act as a natural painkiller, a stress reliever. It can lift your moods. It could give you that energy, that feel good message in your body. Oh, everything feels great. You just took that sugar intake, right? You've got energy, like getting a caffeine boost almost, right? But with that up is going to come a down. And depending on how much sugar intake you took to get you to that up will depend to the magnitude of that down. And that down could be really down. It could cause such an emotional fluctuation that it wouldn't be fun to deal with, right? Um, One of the things, or a number of the things that a high diet of sugar can affect is it could decrease your brain function, alter your moods, increase anxiety and depression. It could help contribute to heart disease, definitely type 2 diabetes, right? The more insulin in your body, right, that you're producing from sugar, because the insulin's got to sort of balance out your pancreas for all the sugar you've just taken in. And when you continually have high insulin levels, you could lead you to having, type 2 diabetes. And, there's just such a misconception, or just not a realization of the truth of what, sugar intake is doing to our bodies. I remember, years ago with my dad was type 2 diabetic, and it did a number on his body. He ended up having both his legs amputated from his diabetes. And I remember after he had his first leg amputated, he was in a rehab because he did get a prosthetic, and he was learning how to use the prosthetic. And I remember going to visit him this one particular day, and on his tray was this package of Fig Newtons. And the nurse had come in, or the aide had come in to take his blood sugar, and it was 365. 365. Shocking, right? Shocking. Your blood sugar should be 80 to 120, I think they say, or 110. 365. And I said to her, do you think him eating those Fig Newtons was wise? And her response to me was, don't worry, I'm going to give him a shot of insulin. Right? We have become so used to, navigating our health issues with chemical drugs, as opposed to saying, let me treat this with my diet. Now, mind you, once you get to that point of type 2 diabetes, you're going to need insulin to help manage that. But change your diet, and then maybe you can get off that insulin. More than likely you can if you change your diet and lifestyle. But so many of us don't want to do that, and we would rather just keep taking the insulin. Well, that's what my dad did. And my dad ended up with, my dad had heart disease. I don't know if he had heart disease before he had the diabetes. I'm not sure. But he had heart disease. He had multiple heart surgeries, and he lost his 2 limbs from diabetes. So it's just really something to think about. It could cause tooth decay. It could cause gum disease, cancer, and it definitely will contribute to weakening your immune system. The other thing to consider too is sugar is one of those GMO foods, genetically modified. So there are 3 or 4 different foods that you guaranteed that they are genetically modified unless they're organic. And that's sugar, wheat, soy, and I think it's corn. I think those 4 that unless they're organic, you can guarantee that those are genetically modified. So people that have a high diet of sugar are eating foods like donuts, cookies, cakes, sugary drinks, right? But don't be deceived. Those are not the only things. You could say, I'm going to remove those from my diet. And you are still, I promise you, getting sugar if you're eating a lot of processed foods, because there are hidden sugars and there are sugars in food. And one of the food groups that I promise you will find a high level of sugar in is low fat. And in my opinion, I think a low fat diet was one of the most harmful things we've done to people. Because we need fat, but we need healthy fat. We need good fat. Our brain needs fat. So when we remove fat from our body, right, we're harming our body in a multitude of ways. And to understand, when you remove fat from food, you've taken out the flavor of the food. So in order to make the food taste palatable, they're putting sugar in. And I had listened to a doctor years ago, and maybe someday I can find who he was. I can't remember. I think I have an idea who the doctor was, but he was talking about what started the whole low-fat fad was the sugar industry, because the sugar industry was getting bastardized of how dangerous it was. So what they did was create this whole concept of how bad fats were. They were successful. It was successful. And they created low-fat diets and created foods that remove the fats from the diet, and now they're high in sugar. Um, Research has found that high sugar diets also affect the brain, just like cocaine. And they've done studies where they look at a brain that's on cocaine, and then they look at a brain that's got a high sugar diet, and the brain is reacting in the same way that the cocaine is affecting their brain. So it is definitely something to think about. Um, Sugar affects your insulin so negatively. And we need insulin. It's a hormone. We need that hormone in our body, but we need it to be managed. We need it to be balanced. A balanced insulin will work to function, to cause your brain to function properly. But when it's not regulated, it can cause cognitive issues in the brain. That research shows that people with type 2 diabetes have a higher chance of developing dementia. So it's really something to think about. What your sugar intake is, how is it affecting you? Sugar will also affect your skin, can cause acne, right? Sugar will affect your insulin, causing, high insulin will cause inflammation in your body. And when you have internal inflammation, it's going to affect the organs in your body, and your skin is an organ. And acne can develop from that. So if you have a problem with acne, especially as a teen, your hormones are changing and altering and whatever. And then if you have a high diet of sugar, you're totally messing up your hormones even more. So if you are someone dealing with acne, just really look at your sugar intake and consider maybe doing a detox to see if that affects your skin. The other thing is, as we age, they say about 25 years and older, your collagen levels are starting to decrease. And collagen kind of keeps your skin nice and plump and healthy looking. And so as you lose your collagen levels, that's where wrinkles come in. So we're producing, just naturally, we're producing less and less collagen, but our sugar intake will also affect collagen. One of the things I try to talk to my clients about to see, if they do have a high level, or it seems that they have a high diet of sugar intake, is to see, are you addicted to it? And one of the ways to see if you're addicted is your inability to go without high sugary foods or drinks. Right? If you struggle with that, you could be addicted. Or does your behavior change when you eat it? Do you get calmer, or do you get more hyper? It could affect it either way. It could make you calm only because your body is agitated because it needs that sugar fix. And so when you get the sugar fix, you seem to calm down. Or you could be calm and you take that sugar and now you're totally anxious and hyperactivity in children. Definitely I'd look at their sugar intake. You have cravings, right? Another trigger point of being addicted to sugar is that you have high sugar cravings, no matter what time of day or night it is. You just crave that sugar, whether it's a cookie or a piece of cake or a sugary drink or something. Your body just needs it. Or you have a lack of control over how much you eat or drink. You can't stabilize, the amount of food you're eating. Because understand, if you have a high diet of processed foods, which have lots of sugar in it, or you have a high diet of sugar, like let's say your breakfasts is, you're eating sugary cereals, or you're giving your children sugary cereals, there's no nutritional value. So your body is going to say, I'm hungry, I need to eat. Okay? Because your brain is like, I need food. So you're going to eat more. So I highly consider doing a sugar detox, and it can be hard, especially if you're addicted. But once you can get over the hump of the first few weeks, things will get better for you. So, what are some sugar options for you? I don't want to just say remove sugar from your diet without giving you some options. Well, some of those are things like stevia. Now, I do not like stevia. I have tried stevia. I still have stevia. It's just sitting in a little bottle. And I've tried to use it. To me, it's like the utmost of sweetness. Now, I don't know. Maybe the recipes I've tried it in, I've put too much in. I don't know. But to me, it's just too sweet. But I know people that absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it, and use it all the time. It's just not for me. Monk fruit is a nice way to sweeten your food in baking and such. Something called yakan syrup. Never heard of it. I don't know what it is. Or lucoma or mesquite. Those three things I have never heard of, but those are some options. You probably can find those at health food stores. Raw coconut palm sugar. Now that I've used. I think it is a little sweeter than regular sugar, not by much. It's got a different taste. It looks like a brown sugar, actually. Um, it I don't want to say this the wrong way. To me, it definitely has a different aftertaste. That's the word. It's got a little aftertaste to it. It's not horrible. And I think if you constantly used it, you'd get used to it. Your body would get used to it and it'd be fine. Another option is raw dates. Now, I've used raw dates in multiple recipes, and I love them. I think they're a great way to sweeten. The dates do not affect your glycemic levels, so I think it's great. Another option is local raw honey, and I do have a gentleman that does his honeybees, and he sells his raw honey, and it's just fabulous to me. Um, and raw, unfiltered, unprocessed food honey. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Unheated. That's what it is. Unfiltered, unheated raw honey, and so it's thick. I'm trying to think of the consistency. It's almost like a butter, in a sense, but it's delicious. I use it in my tea. I don't cook with it because it's expensive, and I'll use it in some of my teas. Now, I my coffee, my hot beverages, for the most part, I don't use sugar. Years ago, my best friend that I started to hang out with when I was in fifth grade, Michelle. She was my friend all the way through high school. Actually, even beyond that a little bit. But I used to go to her house and we would sit at her kitchen table with her mom and her sisters and we would drink tea. That's how I got introduced to drinking Lipton tea. And they never put sugar in the tea. So I thought, okay, I'm going to drink tea with them and they don't put sugar in it. So I never thought to put sugar in it. And then years later, when I decided to start drinking coffee, I said, well, I drink tea without sugar. Let me drink coffee without sugar. I can't drink black coffee, but I don't put sugar in my coffee. And it's totally fine. I'm totally used to it. I think if I had sugar in it, it would be just too sweet for me. But I do, in the morning, I have one cup of my decaffeinated coffee. And then I want to have my English breakfast tea. And I have at least one, sometimes 2 cups of that. And I don't put sugar in that. Just put a little drop or 2 of milk, and that's my next hot beverage. Then, if I feel like I want to have more hot beverages, which usually this time of the year, it's really hard. Like right now, I'm drinking this glass of water, and I'm only drinking it because I need to be hydrated. But I just, because it's cold, I just want heat. I want to drink heat. So it's kind of hard to drink a cold glass of water. But I'll have an herbal tea. And depending on that herbal tea, I will put about a quarter of a teaspoon of this raw honey in. I do use honey for cooking, but it's not this specific raw, unheated, unfiltered. I only save that for my tea. Like I said, it's on the expensive side, and I don't want to use it for baking. Another type of sweetener that you could use is blackstrap molasses, or something called sucanat. Now these sweeteners here are plant based, and you could use them, but occasionally. And those are like fructose or agave or xylitol or maltitol or erythritol or brown rice syrup. Those are sugars that I would use in moderation. And if ever looked at or seen food that says no sugar added on the package or on the beverage, right? Or on your gum, no sugar added. Well, that has to be probably one of the most creative marketing lies there is, because that does not mean that there was, well, let me take that back. It does mean that your regular cane sugar or honey or any of that has not been added. But what has been added is artificial sweeteners. So it kind of snuck its way in there. Read the ingredients, and you can guarantee that it has an artificial sweetener in it, right? Now, we know processed sugar is bad for us, and we have to be careful with it. But artificial sweeteners are, in my eyes, 100 times worse. I would rather you use that cane sugar than use something with artificial sweeteners in it. By far, absolutely, without a doubt, I would recommend that, right? What are some of the side effects of these artificial sweeteners? Things like headaches and dizziness, insomnia, fatigue, depression or mood changes, nausea and digestive issues, weight gain, and more. And you say, weight gain? But I'm eating sugar-free food. Well, the thing with these chemicals, right? It's tricking your body to think you took sugar. It's a chemical. There's no nutritional value, just like there's no nutritional value in sugar, but there's even less or none at all, equal to, with artificial sweeteners. And there are ingredients and chemicals in there that could trigger an appetite. Now, it may not affect everyone, but it could affect you. And that specific chemical in that artificial sweetener could trigger your body to want to eat more. Highly recommend it. Never, like I beg people, please don't. Don't use saccharin, which is sweet and low. Don't use aspartame, which is NutraSweet or equal. Don't use sucralose, which is Splenda, or Truvia, or corn syrup. Right? Corn syrup we probably use more for baking. But remember, corn syrup is made from corn, and its process is chemicalized, and it's a GMO'd food. So let's just take a quick look at aspartame. Aspartame contains chemicals that I'm going to have to read here because I can't really pronounce all of them. But they contain chemicals like methanol, one called phenylalanine, and aspartic acid. And both aspartic acid and phenylalanine, I don't know if I'm saying it right. Both of those chemicals directly affect your brain and your nervous system, and can lead to neurological issues. And if you're somebody that is dealing with MS, or you just got diagnosed with it, or you've been dealing with it for years, and you are a artificial sweetener person, I am saying, please get off of it. you may see a change. You because they're saying that what these artificial sweeteners could do to your body mimics MS. So a doctor may diagnose you with MS when in fact you are just having toxic poisoning in your body from these artificial sweeteners. Okay? So those two chemicals can affect your brain and your nervous system. The methanol is even worse because when the methanol gets in your body and starts to break down, it actually turns into formaldehyde. And formaldehyde is something we don't want in our bodies, right? Formaldehyde is used on pressure-treated wood. Formaldehyde is used when you die and the undertaker has to process your body for your funeral. Or formaldehyde is used in your high school scientific dissections. Okay? Not something you want to ingest. Artificial sweeteners have been linked to more than 90 documented concerns, health concerns, right? Why? Why do we keep doing it? Because we've been uneducated in it. We've been misled. We've been lied to, right? So let's look at aspartame now. Not aspartame. Let's look at sucralose. This was a clever marketing ploy done years ago, that it was a safe sugar alternative. Because sucralose, they say, is prepared by breaking down sucrose, which is your table sugar. But in order to get the sucralose from sucrose, they have to substitute the chlorine atoms in place. They have to substitute with chlorine atoms in place of the hydrogen oxygen that's in sugar, those molecules. They replace the hydrogen oxygen molecules with chlorine. And chlorine is known as a carcinogen, and it's highly toxic to our bodies. Also, studies show that sucralose can affect your gut bacteria. And we all need a healthy gut because they say our gut is our second brain. And so the level of health in your gut will determine a lot of the health of your body and determine a lot of your emotional stability. So if you're dealing with like high anxiety or depression, I mean, one of the first things I would do is like, let's get your gut healthy. Let's look at what's going on in your gut. Maybe you've got leaky gut and it's something to look at. So sucralose is known to damage your gut microbiome. Lastly, let's look at saccharin, right? It's a popular sugar alcohol, and it was invented by a chemist, I think over 100 years ago, and he discovered it by accident. He was working with coal tar, and for some reason he decided to taste it, and he goes, ooh, this is sweet. And then the rest is history. It became a sweetener, saccharin, now that we use. But it has dangerous chemicals like nitrous oxide, chlorine, ammonia, anthranilic acid, and sulfur dioxide. And in the 1900s, they tried, the USDA did try to get it banned, as well as the FDA, because the USDA said they felt that it was extremely injurious to our health. And the FDA tried to ban it, but they weren't successful. Just get those lobbyists out there and life is ruined. So now, we find saccharin on all kinds of tables in restaurants and in our homes, right? So that's not necessarily the full list, but it's probably the top artificial sweeteners that are used the most. And I can almost promise you, in time, they'll get renamed, because that's what happened with MSG. MSG was known as, something that was so toxic. So what do? They renamed it. And now it's found in our food still, but under another name. So what are hidden sugars? Hidden sugars, and so what does that mean? It means that if you see these ingredients, and I've got a list here, and I'll read through some of them, but I'm also going to provide you a download. But hidden sugars are or hidden ingredients, right? Means that there's this ingredient in the food, but hidden in that ingredient could be something else. So an example I'll give, and I've given on other videos, is something that I learned years ago with my son who was having issues with night terrors, that the FDA requires the company that's making the food to list the ingredients they put in that food. So beech nut was required by the FDA to list the ingredients in their jars. So this specific jar of food that was causing problems for my son was their beef stew. And as I read the ingredients to the woman that was helping me navigate this issue, corn and peas and, potatoes and beef were fine. But when we got to the egg noodles, she said that's where your problem is. Because the FDA required beech nut to list egg noodles, but didn't require beech nut to list the ingredients that the manufacturer that made the egg noodles put in there. And they put yellow dye in the egg noodles. So that is why, my friends, it's so important to read your labels and so important to make your food from scratch. So that's kind of an idea of what hidden foods mean. So there's hidden sugars. And some of those could be like barley malt or buttered syrup or cane juice crystals, caramel, carob syrup, obviously the corn syrups, right? Fructose, fruit juice concentrate, right? Hidden in there is probably sugars. Golden syrup, malt syrup, maltose, muscovado, never heard of it, rice syrup, refiner's syrup. Those are just some options or some ideas that can give you to help you know what those hidden sugars can be in. I'm going to give you a download that will be at the bottom of the video that you will be able to, click the link and it'll be a document kind of summarizing a lot of what we talked about and, what to stay away from, what are your options, what are the hidden sugars and things like that. Just kind of a review, an easier recap of what I've talked about so that you can have it with you when you go shopping and when you start looking at labels. So what's the answer to all this? It's so hard. It can feel so discouraging because our food has been so tainted and harmed. And for these food manufacturers, it is all about profits. It is all about what they can do that's more cost effective for them, not healthier. This morning I was at Whole Foods and I went down the aisle where the bread was. And a woman working at Whole Foods was loading the shelves and she says, "Let me get out of your way." And I'm like, no, you're okay. I'm just looking. I said, because I struggle with the bread here. And, it's like I can't find a bread that I feel is safe. And so she goes, "I understand." And I said, like Dave's bread. Dave's a great guy that makes these organic breads. And I said to her, "But why does he have to put canola oil in it?" She goes, "I know." So there is one bread he makes out of all his different options that there is no canola. Now, I said to her, "I don't believe there's canola oil in here." She actually took the bread and read the ingredients. She goes, "Nope, I don't see it either." So, but, honestly, I should just make my own bread, which is a plan of mine to do over the winters, to just really, I have a bread machine and I do make bread, but I really want to learn how to make homemade bread without the bread machine. But, buying a loaf of bread is easier. So, but harder on some level because there's a lot of ingredients to read through to make sure, is it all safe? So my recommendation is, what is the answer? Just begin to read labels and don't feel overwhelmed by it. If you feel like sugar is a problem in your life, then maybe the start for you, right, is to say, okay, I am going to remove all the added sugars that I add into things. Okay, I am going to try to start drinking my coffee without sugar. Or, maybe instead of 2 teaspoons, I'll put 1 teaspoon. And then I'll gradually, decrease it so that the taste is not, or the change is not so dramatic that you're going to have a hard time enjoying your cup of coffee, right? So maybe do that. If you cannot, do a total detox, right? So start in that way. Say, I am going to remove the things I'm adding into my food, the sugar I'm adding into my food. That's where I'm going to start. And then maybe after a couple of weeks, then really start paying attention to the food that you're buying and reading labels and understanding the added sugar in those foods. And understand, if you are buying processed foods, that those foods have sugar. The sugar manufacturers have been clever into convincing all these other food manufacturers that they needed to put sugar in their food. Very clever. And they've been successful. But we as a consumer need to be smart. We need to be smart with our health choices and the foods we eat so that we can live a long, happy, healthy life. I'm planning on living a long life. But I don't want to live a long life the way my parents did with all the health issues they had. No way. Take me. I'm not interested. I'll live long. I'll live to be over 100. I think it's cool. I'm planning on it. But if I'm going to be having major health issues, I'd rather not. I'd rather go. Right? Because what kind of life is it? My parents in their latter years, life, I don't want to say their entertainment, but what they did, what their schedule was filled with was doctor appointments. It had gotten to a point where when I started, being their medical rep, and I started navigating their health issues, and I would go to doctor visits with them. It got to the point where I'm like, I cannot do this anymore because I couldn't work. They had so many doctor visits in a week that I had to hire somebody to help bring them to their doctor visits. And that would help listen to what the doctor had to say to then give me the information so that I knew what was going on. So take it small, take it little by little, but really make a conscious effort to look at your sugar intake and make some changes if you are on the high end, if you have a diet high in sugar. Okay? I'm here for you. And if you feel like this is just too much for you to navigate on your own, I'm here. I can coach you. I can work with you. I can help you come up with a strategy and a plan to implement these changes that you want. You just tell me what your goal is and we'll work at it. I'll get you there. But you gotta want to work at it. Okay? So, download below is going to be the link to the download. Click on that and take it, copy it, print it off, carry it with you if you need to until you become more familiar with it. Because I want to help you. I want to help you build a strong immune system. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and then you will be informed when a new video comes out or a new podcast. I know some of you that are listening to a podcast can't see exactly what's going on in the video, but you also, as a podcaster, can have the download. All right? So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. And as my weekly tip that I want you to walk away with is to understand that what feeds cancer cells is sugar. So if you've had cancer, or you've been recently diagnosed with cancer, or you are right now, navigating cancer, and whether you've chosen the traditional route of chemo and or radiation, or you're going to go about it naturally, think about the sugar intake. Any sugar intake will feed on cancer cells and help it to grow. So if you are in one of those categories, especially if you're currently dealing with, if you've had cancer and you're sort of beyond it, look at your sugar intake, right? Make sure you're not having a high diet of sugar. But if you have been diagnosed, or just diagnosed, or you've been diagnosed and you're being treated, I would say you need to do a detox immediately. And you need to cut out all sugars from your diet, because you want to get beyond the cancer. So I hope you found this helpful. I so appreciate you taking the time and listening. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great, great week.